it's time for the best coverage of the top stories in sports. The Sports Wrap with Jason Page starts now.
Yes, it does. Thank you, Chad Erickson, and great to have you with us on this Thursday edition of the show. We got a lot to do over the next 60 minutes. Kurt Helin's back from vacation, and that means he will be here. We'll talk about the Olympics basketball and what's kind of going under the radar that people aren't hearing about because the Olympics have sucked up so much of the oxygen. I want to get his thoughts on sort of what's kind of going under the radar in the NBA. We had a marketing deal with the Jazz for huge bucks, which means he's obviously not going to the Warriors, which means the Warriors are about to enter that phase of basketball purgatory where you're not really terrible, but you're not good, and you're just kind of mid. We'll talk to him about that. We'll also get into some baseball talk, NFL as well, but we start things out with something we talked about already this week with Bill Bender, and that's the situation with Michigan. You see it at the top of the screen, the Michigan mess, and the joke that is the NCAA, Sam Yarnell. And, look, it'd be easy to sit here and club the NCAA over the head because it's feckless, it's toothless, it's hapless, it's listless at times. It took them forever to come down with a sanction on Jim Harbaugh that is effectively useless because he ain't ever coming back. Never, 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 never. He's never coming back to coach in the NCAA ranks. So who cares if you give him a 4-year show cause? Doesn't matter. Doesn't mean anything. It's got no teeth. It's doing it just so you can say, see, we're on top of it. We're on the ball. It'd be easy to kill the NCAA for this. They're going to take away wins. They're going to vacate wins. And this isn't even getting this show cause. This isn't even about the Connor Stallion stuff. We haven't even gotten to the juicy stuff yet. This is just the NCAA going in on stuff that happened during COVID and giving kids hamburgers and stuff like that. This isn't even the juicy stuff yet. Again, though, it comes back to, for me, Harbaugh. And look, Pete Carroll did this too. He ran as fast as he was Usain Bolt running out of USC to get to the NFL because he knew sanctions were coming. So it's not like this hasn't happened before. But again, it speaks to the character of Jim Harbaugh and the guy you want running your NFL franchise, which he's now going to be doing with the Chargers. And it'll be interesting to see sort of how all of this trickles into what's going on with him and the Chargers. Maybe it doesn't matter at all, Sam. Maybe it doesn't matter one single bit. But one thing I think, but one thing I want to talk about, one thing I really want to get into after all of that. Sherrone Moore's in a lot of trouble. Because he's also in the crosshairs, metaphorically speaking, of the NCAA right now. And I always wonder this question, and I know as a Buffalo Bills fan, you will appreciate this. You sold your soul to the devil. You went and got Jim Harbaugh. They did whatever they had to do, win at all costs. We're going to cheat. We're going to sign steal. Yeah, other teams may have been doing it. All these different things that pile up on Harbaugh that lead to a 4-year show cause, all of that. You win a national championship. But now you've got sanctions coming in. You're going to have more sanctions coming in. Your current head coach may be at risk. Team could be in the doldrums for a while if the NCAA really lays down the hammer. Is that one national championship worth it if you're talking about 7 or 8 years in football hell? As a Bills fan, I'd ask you, if it was win at all costs and you finally got a Super Bowl and you got to watch one, but the next 10 years sucked, would you sign up for that as a Bills fan?
Well, yes, any Bills fan would, but I think that that's different because you can't compare the Bills to the Michigan Wolverines in football. The Michigan Wolverines are a powerhouse that have been around for decades and have multiple national championships.
Hadn't won one in a while, though. Hadn't won one in a long time, but they hadn't won one in a long time.
Yeah, I still think it's just a little. The funniest thing about all this to me, Jason, is we keep saying this 4-year show cause and the 4-year ban. Like this is so funny about the NCAA. First of all, just so everyone out there knows, Jim Harbaugh's contract that he just signed with the Los Angeles Chargers, 5 years. Objectively very funny. The NCAA is not going to do anything about this. They're not going to drop any sort of hammer on Michigan. And here's exactly why. This scandal, this whole Connor Stallion saga is the best and most notable thing that has kept college football in the off-season news and has kept them relevant outside of the 12 weeks of the season where the regular season is ongoing, more so than any storyline that we've seen since Cam Newton's laptop, Tim Tebow maybe. But yeah, it's that level of thing, which is why the NCAA has no problem with all the attention it continues to get. And they make these meaningless motions towards Jim Harbaugh, banning him for 4 years, not even fully banning him like you alluded to. Now any school that wants to hire him, they essentially just have to go before a committee and say, this is why we want to hire this guy. No committee is going to say, no, you can't hire a guy who just won a national championship in his last season there. Regardless, that whole show cause lasts a year shorter than his tenure in Los Angeles will at its shortest. I don't understand the move. It's just, again, Jason, it's the NCAA playing this politic game. All they're going to do is give slaps on the wrist where it won't really hurt Michigan or anything else, but it'll keep this story in the news cycle because the NCAA knows that with their players and coaches leaving for the NFL and as many coaches and players speaking out against how all this NIL system works, they know they've got to do something to stay relevant and stay in the news and get a little bit of good press. So this is exactly how they're doing it.
I think some of that is true. I do think that Michigan is at some risk, though, especially now because they have won a national championship. The NCAA doesn't need Michigan. The NCAA doesn't need, college football doesn't need Michigan to be good in order to survive. People are still going to watch on Saturdays. There's still a lot of great teams. There's still a lot of great talent. To me, I think that they're gonna lay. I think Moore's gone. I think Ward Manuel's going to have to go and redo that entire program is basically going to have to be redone. Like they literally could be looking at half a dozen years in the college football wilderness. I really believe that. I think they're in a lot of trouble because eventually, the NCAA is not going to be able to survive on, Connor Stallion's, cheating and all of that stuff. And I think the NCAA ultimately is going to lay the hammer down on them pretty hard, and it could set them back several years. But again, you trade it. You trade a national championship and the thrill and the moment of that to being bad for 5 or 6 years. These things are cyclical. We'll come back. Kurt Helin joins us next.
I'd like to say this is the first time, but there have been others.
How many?
Who can keep track?
You think this is a joke?
Darling, we need answers, and you're gonna give them to us.
Tell us again.
My car broke down. I brought it here.
I got stuck paying an expensive repair bill.
So it's true.
How much, darling?
$2,300. But
$2,300.
What was I supposed to do? My transmission was shot.
You pick up your phone and you call CarShield before the car breaks down.
Plans through CarShield cover up to 5,000 parts and systems in your car.
That's right. A plan through CarShield could save you on some criminally high auto repairs, especially if your car is out of warranty. So, call CarShield, America's #1 auto protection company, before a breakdown and save yourself from getting stuck in car repair jail.
Let me guess. You hate saving money.
Who hates saving money?
Apparently you do.
All you had to do was call CarShield. And you could have protected yourself against expensive repairs.
Yeah, and then my price will go up the minute I file a claim.
Shut up! CarShield has the price locked in.
For as long as you cover your car.
I guess I should have called CarShield?
It's about time you said something that made sense.
Now you know what you need to do next time.
Bet he'll call CarShield now.
So can I go? Or
CarShield has an A rating with the Better Business Bureau and was voted America's most trusted auto protection company. Don't get handcuffed paying expensive auto repairs. Call now and get the CarShield guarantee. Your price will never go up and your coverage will never go down as long as you cover your car. In just minutes, you could have a plan that covers up to 5,000 parts and systems in your car. Don't wait until it's too late. Get CarShield's best coverage yet. Call 800-722-6574.
Attention families with a loved one in a nursing home. If your loved one has suffered from bed sores, falls, broken bones, dehydration, or even death, you may be entitled to a substantial settlement. If you have a loved one who is injured in a nursing home, we will find out what happened. State violations are found against nursing homes every day. You have a limited time to file your claim, so don't wait. Call 800-398-5999 and speak with one of our attorneys. The call is confidential and free.
Sam Yarnell will return in about 20 minutes. Let's talk some basketball. Kurt Helin, Pro Basketball Talk at NBCSports.com, is here. He's tanned. He's rested. He's ready. I got to ask you, how was vacation? How was the cruise?
Vacation was awesome. We were in Slovenia, Croatia, Montenegro a little bit, and then some time on the Greek islands. So basically the entire Venetian Empire from the Renaissance era, basically just covered that space.
So you can check that one off your list. All right, I got to ask though, how much basketball did you watch? How much of the Olympic stuff, the run up to it? How much sports and all of that can you get away with watching when you're on a vacation like this? Like, do you get a slap on the wrist? Do you get the evil eye if you're caught watching it, or do you wait till she goes to bed? What do you do?
I worked less on this vacation than most, just because the season, the NBA portion had really wound down by the time I left, so there really wasn't transactions of note. And I did watch as much Olympics and USA stuff in particular as I could, but I had to catch up. Like, I was just in places with bad Wi-Fi, which was both frustrating at points and probably good for me in a lot of ways.
All right, I want to get your thoughts. What do you make of this USA men's basketball performance? To me, it's been very workmanlike, Kurt. That's the way I would, it's very sort of blue collar, lunch pail stuff. Have there been moments where they take their foot off the gas pedal? Few and far between to me, because I think the biggest competition here was the U.S. men's basketball team against itself. And I even said this when they were playing close games against South Sudan and Serbia and all this stuff before these Olympics started. I said, relax. Just wait. When it matters and they have their full complement of players out there, they're going to be fine. And so far, that's kind of played out that way.
Yeah, 24, almost 25 point a game average wins in Paris, in the Paris Olympics. I think that's the advantage of having this veteran squad and having a squad where I wrote about this, they talked about it. They all played international basketball. Even Curry and Edwards and guys in their first Olympics had played internationally before, so it was a little more like riding a bike. And I think when they got the veterans there and they realized what was in front of them and they took it seriously, I think they realized, to use Steve Kerr's line, it's not 1992, right? Like Jordan can't, Jordan and Chuck Daly can't play 36 holes and then go out and roll over Somalia or whoever's in front of them, right? Like, you're going to have to focus a little bit, but they have been focused enough. And I think you see it, by the way, on the defensive end. They're like scram switches and stuff that usually take time. It's developed pretty quickly. Their chemistry getting out of bad matchups has looked good.
What do you make of the way Steve Kerr's managed this roster? And I don't want to say coached it, but I want to say managed and sort of massaged this roster.
He's done okay. There's been some fun stuff. Like, actually, I kind of enjoyed just play calling wise. He's pulled out a bunch of the old KD stuff from when he was with the Warriors. And like, oh, hey, I remember down one, and like all this stuff that they're running. But it's been hard. Sitting Tatum was frankly, I think, a mistake in that first Serbia game. And I don't think you'll see that again. Managing Embiid, who has not been great, has been a challenge. And how do you fit him in? Because you kind of need him at points and you're going to need his size. But frankly, Anthony Davis has just been much better. Bam Adebayo has been better. So I think he's struggled a little bit to find that balance and try to keep everybody happy. And guys have been pretty accepting. I think Tyrese Halliburton at the top of that list has been pretty accepting with a role smaller than he might deserve.
It's been surprising to me how bad Steph Curry shot the ball.
Yeah, I'm really curious about that just because he's getting good looks. The line's a little closer. Like he's had, like there was one exhibition game where he went off, but I think against Serbia, but like in general, he is not, I would like to see him involved in the action a little more. They've been working him off ball rather than on because of LeBron's IQ in passing. He's been the MVP. He's been nothing short of brilliant.
It's remarkable.
But I'd like to get the ball in Curry's hands a few times just because nobody can match it.
You took me to LeBron. It is remarkable to watch what this guy is doing. In this what is essentially a coronation for this USA men's basketball team. I'd like to see them get tested somewhere just to see how they react in a big moment. But I don't see it happening. But watching LeBron, and I'm happy for him because as much as the NBA is a global game, this is a different kind of showcase for the entire world. And I'm glad for him because this is obviously, I shouldn't say obviously going to be his last run at the Olympics.
He said, we asked him about it. We asked him about it back in Vegas at training camp. He's like, not only am I not going to be in Los Angeles, I'm literally not going to be in Los Angeles because I live there. I'm leaving town during the games. Like I'm not going to be in town. I don't want to be there during the trip. He has been, and I think we've seen this from him for stretches over the last couple of years. When you ask him to play 20-ish minutes a night, a low 20s, and just focus on certain things, like he is still a tone-setting elite. You want me to score a little, want me to rebound, his passing, his offensive playmaking, his IQ is through the roof. The only problem, frankly, the Lakers have is that they're asking him to do this at 30-plus minutes a night over 82, right?
Yes.
Like he can still do it. We saw it in the playoffs. We saw it a couple of years ago. We saw it in the in-season tournament. In stretches, he can still be one of the 2 or 3 best players on the planet. It's just you can't ask him, the Lakers can't ask him to do it, for 6 months.
No, but you know what's interesting and what I would equate it to in these Olympic games where he only has to play that, 20 to 22 minutes sort of thing. It's almost like taking a starting pitcher and in the postseason saying you're coming out of the bullpen. And a guy that throws 95 or 96 as a starter during the regular season can come out of the bullpen and throw 100, 101 because they can empty the tank. It's kind of like that with LeBron. He can go hard for those 20 to 22 minutes knowing the scheduling is such, there's no back-to-backs, there's a day off in between, that sort of thing. And
no travel.
No travel. I mean, he can go really hard for those 20 to 22 minutes. And I will say it, I don't know if there's a better guy I've ever seen when he can go his hardest as LeBron. I just don't see it.
And what you're getting from him, and frankly from Curry and some of the other guys not known for their defense, and LeBron's defense isn't what it once was.
Sure.
They're locked in on that end, and they're putting in the energy and effort because, again, 20 minutes. And then by the way, I'm getting subbed out by an NBA All-Star. Like, I'm rolling through 12 NBA All-Stars in this game. And because of that, because they can, hey, we need a defensive stop, we can go to Holiday or whomever. It just works.
It's been remarkable watching the way this cast of characters in this era of the NBA have been able to put their egos aside. We shouldn't have to think it's remarkable, but it is. I got more to ask Kurt. We're coming back with him. Stay with us. Let's take it to segment 3. Continue the basketball conversation. Kurt Helin is fresh off his vacation to the Mediterranean.
The Aegean, we're going to be specific.
All right, the Aegean. I apologize. Talking about international basketball, I want to ask you. There's always this conversation now about how close the rest of the world is to the United States. Has these Olympics shown that? Yeah, they're better, but they're not as close as maybe we think they are. Has this Olympic sort of dispelled that notion?
I don't know that it has, only in this sense. I mean, we finished 4th in the World Cup a year ago, and it's a reminder that outside of Jokic, most of these teams sent very similar teams. if we don't send the A-listers, if we don't send LeBron, Curry, Durant, Edwards, on and on down the line, and that's nothing against the guys we sent, like Jalen Brunson and a very good team. But if we don't send the true A-list, yeah, they're right there. These teams are just a step behind. If we send the true best, we can still outplay them. We still have more talent. So I don't think they've caught all the way up, but it's close. And by the way, it's getting closer. You watch France play with a 20-year-old Wembanyama in this thing, and you're like, man, they're going to be a problem in 2028.
Yeah, but the problem is they can throw 3 or 4 NBA-worthy guys on the court, and we're throwing 12. I mean,
and by the way, Canada rolled out 10, and they got bounced in the quarters. It's like there's still something to chemistry. And they're young. I think Canada is going to be very good in 2028 too. But I think there's something, like I said before, so that having these veterans who have done it before for the U.S., who, like you said, put the egos aside. Like, hey, you want me to defend hard? Curry's out there. I haven't seen Curry defend this hard in a long time. The guys are out there busting on that end, but they're also like, hey, whatever. I don't care how many points I get. What do we have to do to win?
I know they didn't make it out of the group stage, but South Sudan has to be the coolest story of the showcase, and then this. That has to be the best story coming out of these games, doesn't it?
I think so. Just I mean, Dang was playing. They were paying for this out of pocket, right? Like the guys were like, "Hey, we got to get a practice facility somewhere." This isn't it's a new country, and understandably, because of the situation, like investing in sports infrastructure is not at the top of the priority list for that nation right now. That they were able to pull these guys in and make them a team and make them kind of playing for that kind of pride. It was really good. And it was fun to see because that team, they were athletic and they brought it every night in a way other countries did not. It was fun to watch them play.
You can make the argument. They pushed the United States harder than anybody between the 2 games they played against them.
Yeah, I think exactly. I think the first time you could try to argue the U.S. Looked past them in the Abu Dhabi thing. We're looking past them in France and still got pushed.
Move away from the Olympics in the last few minutes I have with you here. What is, if there is something that's gone under the radar in terms of the basketball world and particularly the NBA while these Olympics are going on, is there something that's sort of still lingering out there? I know the marketing deal with the Jazz was obviously a huge number. It means he's obviously not going to the Warriors as well, which I'll get to in a second and talk about them. But is there anything that's sort of still lingering and sort of festering underneath the surface right now?
Not really. I think that's interesting is what you've seen with the marketing deal. Like marketing gets his deal, and the Warriors don't pivot to go get the other 2 big names they could go get, right? They're not going to go chase Brandon Ingram or Zach LaVine, who are the 2 all-star elite scorers still available via trade if you want them. They're not interested. And I think it speaks to how much the Second Apron and the CBA have changed how teams are building now, where they're looking at guys like that who are all-star level players and saying, I don't know if I want to give them max or near max money. And it's because they're not going to, can I win with them? Or can they be the best player on a great team or top 2 player? And I think it's really going to be interesting over the next few years to see how players get evaluated and shifted out over that. I think that's still lingering because it's changed how teams are evaluating. Like, I'm really curious what the next contract for Brandon Ingram looks like.
Are the Warriors about to enter that phase within the history of their franchise where they're not terrible? They're not Washington Wizards bad or Pistons bad.
Generals.
But we're talking about, potentially 5 or 6 years of this franchise just being sort of meh in a market where they're charging huge ticket prices and it's hard to be meh. Are the Warriors headed in that direction now?
A little bit, yeah. Look, they tried to find a second, Markkanen and others, they tried to find a second shot creator to put next to Curry and couldn't. I will say this, I think they got a little better. Yes, they lost Klay Thompson, which is just going to be weird. And Chris Paul is gone. But they bringing in DeAnthony Melton and Kyle Anderson, the moves they made this offseason, they actually got a little deeper. Their shooting's a little better. They're a little more balanced. But you know what they are? They're play-in team. In a West where 12 teams plus the Spurs, who can probably do it, think they've got legitimate postseason chances. What are they, 7th, 8th, 9th in the West? Like, they're just not. Maybe they can get to 6th, but I don't think so. That's the high-end scenario. That's just kind of where they are. They are not a contender right now. And it's going to be a little like the Lakers at the end of the Kobe era, where, like, people are coming to see Kobe. They're going to come to see Curry. They're going to fill the building. Everybody wants to see Steph Curry, but they're going to be retooling around him because right now they are not a contender. And minus a bold move that I don't see how they get there.
Is there any chance that if it gets bad enough that Curry walks into the offices and says, I want out? Like, let's trade me. Let me go finish my career in Charlotte, or go play for a contender. I don't know. He doesn't strike me as the type that would go chasing more rings. But is there any chance that happens?
I would be shocked if he chased a ring. If you told me he wanted to play the last year of his career in Charlotte, where his dad played, where he grew up, maybe. Like that's not crazy to me. And Charlotte would jump at it just for the marketing.
But you think he's going to be patient with this?
I don't think he wants. I think he wants to be one of those guys who's remembered for wearing one jersey the whole time. And we kind of do that. I think you can still look. Do you think of Patrick Ewing in any other uniform? Like, you can go somewhere
right above
else.
Me. There
but
he
I don't
is.
know, man.
It's my Ewing. Yeah. There's my Ewing basketball. I can't ever think. I get teary-eyed just thinking about him playing for Seattle or Orlando. God, yeah, it's terrible. Kurt Helin, Pro Basketball Talk at NBCSports.com. That is his jam. We always appreciate you, Kurt. Welcome back to the mainland, and we'll talk soon.
I look forward to it, man.
Kurt Helin hanging out with us on the show. Don't go anywhere. We got a lot more to do on this Thursday edition of Sports Wrap. Mother Nature could be a huge determining factor in the stretch run in Major League Baseball. Sam and I will discuss it next. This Thursday edition of Sports Wrap continues. Something to consider coming up in 10 minutes. All the changes the NFL makes, I got a suggestion for them. We'll get to that coming up in just a few minutes. Rejoined by Sam Yarnell. Sam, I talk about this once every few years. This comes to mind. First of all, you're at a disadvantage if you're an East Coast baseball team and you're in the playoff mix come the summer. It's something that never gets talked about, and I know people are going to say, Jason, you're reaching today. But this is true. If you are an East Coast baseball team, once you get to the summer months, and I'm talking hurricane season, I'm talking severe weather, I'm talking those pop-up thunderstorms, all of this. If you are a team that plays on the East Coast in Major League Baseball, Sam Yarnell, you are at a disadvantage because you get more postponements, you get more rainouts, and you know what? Midwest teams early on in the year, they have to deal with snow, Colorado, Cleveland, Minnesota. There's places that have to deal with that kind of weather. But you can make up those games early on in the year. You can play those doubleheaders early on in the year. You have the off days early on in the year that are built in for that. Baseball doesn't have enough of that built in late in the season. So if you're an East Coast team, you're at a disadvantage later in the year. And the reason is you get these types of storms. You had doubleheaders in Cleveland yesterday. Teams in the playoff race. You had a doubleheader in New York yesterday. Obviously, the Yankees very much in a divisional playoff race, in a race to win a pennant. This is the time of year where, in some regards, you really have to do extra homework as a manager to manage your roster, manage your rotation, manage your staff. Yeah, I think that you can call up one player or something like that if you have a doubleheader for an extra pitcher and things like that. But you're at a great disadvantage if you're an East Coast team because it's hard to sweep doubleheaders. Go look at the math on this, and you'll find out. It's hard to sweep doubleheaders. A lot of times you'll see splits. Yesterday, exception to the rule, you had Arizona sweeping the Guardians in a doubleheader in Cleveland. But to me, it kind of sucks if you're an East Coast team this time of year because you could lose a number of games due to weather. and you got to jam them in somewhere. And if you're in the thick of a wild card race where it can come down to one game or a pennant and trying to win a division, you're at a disadvantage.
Yeah, so I was able to go back actually and look at data over the last 3 seasons, which to me it seems, as best I can tell, is kind of when they really started tracking this with weather delays. Interestingly enough, between 2022, 2023, and this season, up until this point, up to August 8th, this is the fewest amount of rainouts that we've had in a season, which I guess makes sense just considering the general dry weather. But then, Jason, when I looked, the most interesting thing to me specifically about 2023 is up again. I just did my research up to this point because I feel like September gets a little bit different in late August, especially in those southeastern states. But up until the beginning of August in 2023, the 2 teams that had the most rainouts were tied between the Atlanta Braves and the Detroit Tigers. Obviously, thinking about how Atlanta's season last year went, and Detroit's for that matter too, right? 2 completely polar opposite seasons. Atlanta obviously setting records with the season that Ronald Acuna Jr. had, the first 7, what did he finish, 80-40 or 70-30 or something, something ridiculous. And then Detroit obviously letting us all down last year. Interesting to see how this can kind of affect teams on both opposite ends of the spectrum. But at the end of the day, I think that when we talk about baseball and the long game of a 162 game season compared to, half that for the NBA or half that for the NHL or 1/10 of that for the National Football League, part of that long game is this, right? It's that you're not going to have great weather every day. It's that you're going to get a couple of games rescheduled and you'll have a couple of doubleheaders every year. And, like you said, Major League Baseball has worked with the teams, it seems, a little bit, especially since COVID, with the taxi squad and having that 26th or 27th man on the roster for the 2-gamer. I don't know. I see what you're saying about the disadvantage, certainly. I definitely think that it's something that, the ultimate resolution, as with the same goes for football, really, is you put all these stadiums indoors and everyone plays at Tropicana Field or Safeco Park. I know no one hates it. No one likes that.
Nobody, especially with a game like baseball. I could see it. I could see it with some other sport, with football a little bit, and even soccer a little bit. But no. I can't do it for baseball. Real quick, Bobby Witt Jr., couple of home runs. MVP odds on him plus 500 right now. Obviously, he's the only way to go if you're looking for value right now on the AL MVP race. Can you make any argument for him right now?
Oh, 100%. Bobby Witt Jr., I mean, I think that there's that's a discussion that I know will go a lot of different ways, and I'm not going to sit here and have it out with a Yankees fan over why Aaron Judge shouldn't be the most valuable player this year.
Crazy.
But Bobby Witt Jr. folks, Bobby Witt Jr., if you haven't paid attention to the Kansas City Royals, because I know all of the mainstream media are very quick to talk about the Yankees and the Mets and the Dodgers and the teams close to the oceans, Bobby Witt Jr. is single-handedly keeping these Kansas City Royals in the playoff race. Cole Reagans has kind of let them down this year. They got some sort of black magic out of Seth Lugo in his age 34 season that no one knows where it came from. Bobby Witt Jr. is single-handedly willing the Kansas City Royals to the playoffs this year. He is your most valuable player in the American League.
64-52 for the Royals right now. And when you look at the wild card, they are the last wild card spot, tied with the Red Sox, who have been way better than anticipated. Hope you took the over on that win total. We're back with something to consider next. All right, we keep it moving on this Thursday edition of the show. You know what, Sam? I lied. I'm gonna pull an audible here for a second. We're gonna get into some NFL stuff. Why I think there are just more signs than ever that we need to reimagine and rethink the way NFL training camps and preseason and all that stuff happens. But we were just talking during the break about Barry Bonds in the context of Aaron Judge. And before we looked at the numbers on this, Sam, I said, you know what? You can look at Aaron Judge, and he really is very close to Barry Bonds. And then you start going back and Again, sometimes prisoner of the moment, recency bias kicks in. And you think, man, Aaron Judge, probably the numbers are really close with Bonds. And then you go back and look at Bonds' numbers, and you realize it's just not even close. I mean, home runs and RBIs in Bonds pre-steroid years, pre-PED years, if you want to talk about that. There's some comparable numbers, home runs, RBIs, all that stuff, certainly. Walks. But I again, you forget these things. Bonds didn't strike out. He never struck out more. He struck out more than 100 times once in his career. It was his rookie season. The guy never. The guy
102 strikeouts,
and that was his high water mark. Today he'd be a huge success at 223 with only 102 strikeouts, 16 and 48. He'd get a bag. He'd get multiple bags. That's Kyle Higashioka numbers. I mean, seriously, that's Higgy. He's got 13 home runs and 36 RBIs this year. He's basically on pace for Barry Bonds numbers in his rookie year. You never realize, I'm telling you, you never realize it sometimes, just how, you never realize sometimes just how good Bonds was. Performance-enhancing drugs or not, you never realize just how amazing a talent he was.
So this is the crazy stat to me.
There we go.
1996, Barry Bonds is 31 years old.
Mm-hmm.
He plays 158 games for the San Francisco Giants.
Mm-hmm.
He walked 151 times and struck out 76. Yeah. Ridiculous.
Yeah. I mean, go look at 02. He hits 370, 46, 110, 198 walks, 47 strikeouts, Sam. Again, PEDs doesn't affect your hand-eye when you're talking about. I mean, that's not even a conversation. I mean, the numbers were off the charts, and then you start thinking to yourself, this guy's not in the Hall of Fame. He's never going to be in the Hall of Fame. I mean, what are we doing? What are we doing? I hate being forced to be in the position of defending Barry Bonds because he treated the media like garbage just for doing their jobs. But the guy belongs in the Hall of Fame. There's no getting around it. Hopefully the Veterans Committee one day will come around on it, or the Retired Players Committee or whatever it's called will come around on it. All right, Sam. Why they need? Did you see Metcalf yesterday?
No.
DK Metcalf swinging a helmet.
Oh, yes.
Oh, my God. These guys, I'm telling you, the NFL's got to figure out a way. And I know, because here's what's most perplexing. You have the NFL preseason, training camp, all this stuff to have guys ready to go week one, right? You got to ramp it up. But then how many times do we talk about week 1, week 2, even sometimes week 3 in the NFL? How sloppy the game is. How many penalties we see. How it just doesn't look like good football. We will have this conversation, I promise you. 6 weeks from now, we will be having a conversation about how sloppy and awful football looks early on in the year. Isn't the preseason and training camp supposed to fix that? If it's not, why are we having it? Why are we having these situations where guys could get hurt? You've got fights breaking out. You got Daniel Jones throwing himself into a scrum. Like, what are you doing? Like, I don't understand. I don't understand why the NFL hasn't figured this out yet. And I know why. It's money. I mean, they want the gate from those preseason games. They want people coming out to training camps and spending money on, a hat for $30 or a towel or something like that to wipe the sweat from their brow. I get it, but it doesn't make sense to me. The ends justifying the means here.
So, Jason, you're exactly right about the money thing. The NFL, we know it to be the capitalistic industry that runs a large faction of America's sports. But I think that a part of it is kind of similar to what we talked about earlier with the college football thing in the NCAA. The NFL loves to be in the spotlight. And when they have a season that starts really the third week of July, when teams are reporting to training camp, and runs through the last week of February, when the Super Bowl media is finishing up after the game, how can you complain about that? That is exactly what they want to do. They just got to keep themselves in the media, in the network. They got to keep their names in the paper. And that's all this is. To the point about the fighting, right? And it's never great. And we saw it, yesterday with DK, saw it a ton this week in the joint practices between the Lions and the Giants. It was like Malik Neighbors was just running around looking for somebody to punch.
Yes, he was.
The thing about all that is, as much as you and I and fans around the country can say, oh, shortened training camp, we don't want to see this. Coaches love that kind of thing. Football coaches die for that kind of thing. They want to see that, hey, it's the third day of August and he's ready to fight for my whole team.
Odds and ends are around the corner. We wrap up the show next. All right, just about time to wrap up this baby for a Thursday. Don't forget, if you haven't checked it out yet, Sports Wrap with Jason Page podcast. It's available wherever you get your podcasts. Spotify, you can watch it there. Apple Podcasts, Google Play, TuneIn, YouTube Podcasts, iHeartRadio. We're on all of them. So go and check out the show there. We are expanding. I can't get into all of the details, but as many places we are on now in just the first 7 months of this show, we are going to be on a ton more coming in September. Exciting news about that right around the corner as well. All right, Sam Yarnell, time to wrap it up with some odds and ends. Odds and ends, Sam Yarnell. Just from a we talk about the White Sox. We've spent more time talking about the White Sox this week than they probably deserve, given how bad they are. They got back on that losing train yesterday with a 3-2 loss in Oakland to the A's. I was watching it over at this station sportsbook here in Vegas yesterday. And Pedro Grifol has finally paid the ultimate price, sports ultimate price. He was fired this morning. So that's it for Pedro Grifol. You know what? It's probably a merciful sort of thing for him not to have to go through this any longer. And I know it'll probably set him back a ways in terms of ever getting another managerial job again, to be, at the helm of a ship that, hit an iceberg and sank badly. 28-89 for the White Sox entering play on Thursday. And Pedro Grifol is out as manager. Who's going to be the interim there? I didn't notice. Grifol's only 54 years old. He's got a long career.
Have they named one yet?
I don't see one.
I don't know if they've named one.
Yeah, it doesn't.
But yeah, this is something, Jason, that we knew was coming, right? Like, no one was surprised by this move. It wasn't a matter of if, it was a matter of when.
Yeah.
And no surprise.
No surprise at all. So that's it. The White Sox have had a dreadful season. Andrew Vaughn. Love Andrew Vaughn. He's been dreadful this year. Had an awful year. Moncada's been hurt. Jimenez has been hurt before they traded him away. Lewis Roberts been meh. He's really the most talented thing they have on that roster. So Pedro Grifol is out. The only question remaining is, can the White Sox, win enough games to make some people some money? The number right now is 39.5, Sam Yarnell. 39.5. Juice to the under at minus 132. Minus 102 on the over.
Yeah, I don't know. I said take the over yesterday when that number came out.
I think you get a bump. I think you get a bump when you fire a manager, though. So if I was going right now, I'd go over. I think they go over. Say it with me today. On Thursday, August 8th, I thereby decree the White Sox will go over 39.5, Sam Yarnell. Run to the window. Yeah. Run to the window. Jason Page is giving you sage betting advice.
So that means what? They have to win 11 more games this year?
11 more
12?
games in basically
11?
2 months. They got almost 2 months to win 11 games, 12 games. Oh, book it.
It's wild that I'm hesitant on that. But
Book it. They're going to win 12 games. Telling you. Sense of pride there. All right.
Yeah, I could see it. I could get behind it.
Yeah, see, you're slow, but you're getting there. World Series odds right now. The Dodgers at plus 330. The Phillies at plus 450. The Yankees at plus 550. The Orioles at 750. I will still say this, and anybody who listens to me, watches me, knows I am not an Astros fan. I think the Astros at 1,400. Oh, I love it. I love that number. Don't like the Astros, but I love the number.
You like the Astros at 1,400. I like the Guardians at 1,900.
Oh, you're crazy. The Guardians are never winning a World Series. Stop it.
Okay.
That's never happening.
Really need them. The thing is, see, that's the thing, Jason. With a Cleveland Guardians bet, you don't. If you take them at 19 to 1 to win the World Series, you don't need them to win the World Series.
Yeah,
you need them
just
to get out of the ALDS, and you make money either way.
Yeah, if you believe in cashing out. I was talking to our friend Scott Seidenberg the other night. He says he doesn't believe in cashing out. He thinks it's a waste.
I don't believe in cashing out either. I believe in making money.
Hedging. You are the gardener. You are the king gardener.
My favorite bet, though, I will say, there is one out there that's speaking to me. The Seattle Mariners are plus 114 right now to make the playoffs. I'd take that. I don't see a way for the Seattle Mariners to collapse so colossally that they don't make the playoffs. I think they can at least ride that pitching staff. Despite Julio having a couple of health issues, I think that...
4 games out. They're 4 out of the wild card. They are a half game out for the division. Mm-hmm. You really think the Astros? I mean, the Astros are. Go look at the trend lines here. Look a lot better for the Astros. Trend lines look a lot better for the Astros than they do the
so
Mariners.
I'm actually the smarter bet there. You're right, Jason. The smarter bet there is just to take the Mariners to win the division. So I'll just take the Mariners to get the AOS championship at plus 145. It's a way better bet.
Yeah, I'd like to believe in the Mariners. I just, my buddy Jem Mueller's up there. I love the Mariners, but no, I'm not there. Not there yet. I didn't get a chance to look at the Cy Young in the National League. What's our buddy Skeens at today? Is that market moved any? We got to go, but.
Paul Skeens to win the Cy Young plus 220 hasn't moved.
Okay. It's going to wrap it up for us. Thanks to Kurt Helin. Thanks to you, Sam. Friday means Tino Patino and a NASCAR Friday. We'll see you all then.